They said I was just the guy behind the screen, the quiet type, not leadership material. Maybe that's why no one noticed when my name vanished from the blueprint of $1 billion project. One day, I stayed late, the office empty, the silence loud enough to hear betrayal breathe. I opened the final file, expecting my work. Instead, I found my ideas, my sketches, my signature, erased, replaced by the name of the man who called me his most trusted. That night, I didn't sleep. I didn't cry either. I began documenting, quietly, carefully. And when the time came, I didn't just speak. I detonated. It had been 8 months since I'd walked out of the last job with my head held high and my career in tatters. I wasn't a whistleblower by design. I was just the guy who couldn't keep quiet when someone higher up cooked the numbers and expected me to sign off. That decision cost me everything, until Calvin found me. He called me one late afternoon, said he'd admired my work from afar, said he needed a brain, not a face, for something big. He offered a blank canvas, a silent position, and a promise that I could build freely, so long as I stayed in the background. The project was ambitious, a complete architectural redesign of the inner city, a $1 billion revitalization contract. Calvin had landed the client, and he wanted me to draw the dream. I took the offer. Not for the money, but because I needed to believe I still had value in this industry. For weeks, I poured everything I had into the blueprint. I stopped noticing time. I worked through weekends, holidays. Sometimes I didn't speak to another human being for days. Calvin said he liked it that way. You're focused. That's rare. One Tuesday, the office was dim and cold. I stayed past midnight, brushing digital lines into life on my screen. The final rendering was nearly done. My daughter's crayon drawing sat pinned to the divider beside me, her tiny handwriting beneath a sketch of me holding a giant pencil. Daddy is the architect of dreams. That image kept me going. Calvin often passed by my desk with 2 coffees, always saying, I know I never say it enough, but you're the genius behind this. I'll make sure everyone knows. I never asked for credit. I just wanted the design to stand. Still, it felt good hearing him say it. It felt human. The day I submitted the final proposal, I felt something strange. The office security system had gone offline the night before for maintenance. When it came back, one of the cameras facing my desk had a new angle. Nothing alarming, just different. I brushed it off. That Friday, Calvin called for an internal team meeting. I expected a walkthrough, maybe feedback. Instead, he pulled up the design on the main screen and said, I'm proud to finally reveal the concept I've developed for the Harmony District. My name wasn't on the slides, nor on the title page, nor in the credits. I waited, thinking he'd correct it. Maybe it was just a placeholder. But he kept going, and kept smiling. Afterward, I approached him quietly. Hey, I think there was a glitch in the presentation. My name. He raised his hand. Oh, right. Don't worry. I'm submitting a full credit list separately to the client. I didn't want to clutter the visuals today. You get it, right? I nodded, but something inside me shrank. That night, I stayed late again. I opened the shared folder. The file's metadata, normally showing version authorship, had been wiped clean. Instead of created by Ethan Graves, it now read, uploaded by C. Stroud, Inc. And the timestamp? Exactly during the security maintenance window. I sat there staring at the screen, a sinking pit expanding in my chest. Then curiosity turned to dread. I scrolled through the email logs Calvin had CC'd me on. Nothing had my name, not one mention. A week ago, he'd sent a summary to the client titled Initial Technical Notes, prepared by eGraves, but that email, deleted. I remembered IT ran backups, so I searched our archive system, and I found it. An email thread between Calvin and the CIO. Subject line, Team Structure for PR. Body, list Ethan as technical assistant only. No authorship visibility, cleaner optics. I leaned back, breath shaky. The man who brought me in, as the mind behind the project, had premeditated my erasure. I walked into the restroom, turned the faucet on full blast, let the cold water drown out the sound. My hands trembled. My face burned, not from anger, but shame. Not because he betrayed me, but because I'd trusted him so willingly. And God, I'd needed to believe him. What was I thinking? I looked in the mirror, wet face, red eyes. That's when the question hit me, quietly, like a whisper. Have you ever trusted someone just because they smiled at you? I left the restroom, dried my hands on my slacks, sat back at my desk. I wasn't ready to confront him. Not yet. I needed proof. Real proof. So I dug deeper. In the backup image directory, hidden in a nested folder, I found something. A single image file. Backup. Final. Original. EG PDF. I clicked it open. It was my rendering, my annotations, my digital signature, time-stamped, authenticated, buried and renamed in a way no one would ever casually find. And that's when I stopped feeling angry and started getting precise. I didn't sleep that night. I just stared at that single image file, the last remaining artifact that tied me to my own work. It was there, quietly buried under layer after layer of renamed folders. If I hadn't found it, no one ever would have known. That realization chilled me, because it meant Calvin had done this deliberately, not in a fit of panic, not a last-minute mistake. No, this was premeditated erasure. And if he planned it that well, it probably wasn't the first time. The next morning, I showed up earlier than usual and headed to the lower floor, where IT's backup servers were kept. I knew the guy who worked there. Curt, quiet, tech-savvy, borderline paranoid. The kind of guy who trusted no one but loved helping when it made him feel smarter than everyone else. I brought coffee. Need a hand recovering a file? He asked, suspicious but curious. Actually, I need to see a few versions of a deleted thread, internal emails, last Tuesday. Curt stared at me. You know I'm not allowed to. Just need metadata, no content, I swear. He exhaled, then motioned for me to sit. We spent 30 minutes going through server snapshots. Sure enough, there it was, a thread between Calvin and the CIO, time-stamped the exact day our network went dark. I couldn't see the entire message, but the subject line was burned into the backup logs. Erase him clean, no trace. My skin turned cold. You good? Curt asked. Yeah, I said. Thanks. This is just what I needed. Back at my desk, I minimized the window and stared into the monitor's reflection. What was I doing? Playing detective in a system I had no authority to touch? Calvin had enough clout to get me blacklisted if he caught wind of this. Or worse. I opened my phone and stared at a photo saved on the lock screen. My wife, my daughter, both smiling in the golden light of our backyard. I tapped the image, zoomed in on my daughter's tiny face. Am I risking everything for nothing? I whispered. I didn't have the answer, but I had questions, and the more I asked them, the deeper I fell. The next 2 days, I played it cool. I didn't confront Calvin. I didn't talk to anyone. I just observed. That Friday, a surprise appeared in my inbox, a notification of a $5,000 bonus, labeled as a token of appreciation for outstanding contribution. It wasn't payday. It wasn't performance review season, and no one else had gotten it. Calvin knocked on my desk later, grinning. Thought you deserved a little something. I know you've been working like a madman. I looked at him, trying to read through the friendliness. Thanks, I said carefully. Unexpected. He winked. Just don't burn out, Graves. We're only getting started. I nodded and watched him walk away. This wasn't a thank you. It was hush money. That afternoon, as I was locking up, a soft voice called to me from the hallway. I turned. It was Maya, one of the PR assistants. Quiet, overlooked, always the last to leave like me. She held a manila envelope. I think this belongs to you, she said, and handed it to me. Inside was a printed version of the original pitch deck, my layout, my annotations, my name clearly marked on every page. Where did you get this? I asked, heart pounding. She looked around. I saw it on the printer a week ago before it disappeared. Calvin told me to trash it, but I didn't. Why? She hesitated. Because he did the same thing to my brother 2 years ago. Different project, same play. Took the credit. My brother quit. Never bounced back. I held the document like it was a lifeline. Thank you, I said. She nodded and walked away. That night, I drove across the city to visit someone I hadn't seen in years. Julian, an old friend who'd left the industry after burning out. He now taught architecture at a small college. We sat outside his place on folding chairs, drinking cheap whiskey under string lights. You always had the fight in you, he said after I told him everything. But you also had the curse. What curse? He pointed at me. You keep letting people stand on your shoulders, then act surprised when they don't help you up. I didn't say anything. You gonna let this guy own your work too? I looked down at my hands. No, I said, not this time. The next morning, I opened my laptop, took a deep breath, and hovered over the attachment button. I had the file. I had the backup. I had the metadata, the email headers, the printout. I could send it all to the client, blow it wide open. But the risk. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. They've started monitoring your machine. Be careful what you open next. I froze. Someone was watching. Maybe multiple people. I checked the IP logs from my last login session. 3 unfamiliar addresses had pinged my workstation after hours. They were serious about erasing me, and I was now on their radar. That afternoon, Calvin called an all-hands meeting. No agenda listed, mandatory attendance. We gathered in the glass conference room. Calvin stood at the head of the table, beaming. We've made tremendous progress, he began, but the client needs a revised report. Some compliance details updated before next week's demo. He looked directly at me. Ethan will be taking the lead on the revisions, he said, and we'll need his sign-off before submitting. He handed me a folder. Inside, a full report already filled out. There were numbers I didn't recognize. Data that had been massaged to make projections look better than they were. Falsified metrics. I looked up at him. He smiled like nothing was wrong. My heart pounded. He wanted my name on this. Wanted me to put my signature under numbers I hadn't verified. Data that was likely fiction. I looked around the room. Every eye avoided mine. They all knew, and they were all too afraid to speak. So now it was my turn to decide. I handed the folder back without saying a word. Calvin raised an eyebrow, confused at first, then amused. Something wrong? I'm not signing it, I said. The room froze. He chuckled. You misunderstand. This isn't optional. Then fire me, I replied. The smile dropped from his face. Silence stretched long enough for everyone in the room to hear the air conditioning hum. Then calmly, Calvin leaned closer. You're risking everything. Think about your family. I already had. Later that day, I found Maya waiting by my desk. She didn't say a word, just nodded and gestured toward the stairwell. We walked down in silence until we reached the underground parking lot. Only then did she speak. I want in, she said. In what? Whatever you're planning. I'm tired of watching him do this. I studied her face. Her jaw was tight, her fists clenched. My brother's name was Alec. He was the first person Calvin buried. I blinked. Alec Ramirez? He worked on the Portside expansion project? She nodded. He designed it from scratch. Calvin took the credit, then blacklisted him. Alec couldn't find work for months. He didn't make it. My stomach dropped. I'm sorry, I said quietly. I don't want your pity, she said. I want your strategy. We spent that night in my apartment, combing through files, backups, anything we could pull. Maya had access to PR materials Calvin had already doctored for the client pitch. I had versions of the original plans, time-stamped and marked with my digital ID. By morning, we had what we needed. A complete narrative showing my authorship, Calvin's manipulations, and a cover-up trail hidden in metadata and access logs. Still, I hesitated. What if it doesn't work? I asked. Maya looked at me. Then we'll burn quietly, but at least it'll be on our terms. That weekend, I stayed home. My daughter wanted to build a Lego castle. She handed me blocks, one by one, explaining where each piece should go. This part supports the roof, she said seriously. If it's weak, the whole thing falls. I smiled, adjusting a small beam she hadn't locked into place. What happens when the builder cheats? I asked. She frowned. Then the house falls faster. I kissed her head. Exactly. On Monday, everything changed. I sent a single email to the client's executive inbox. One line in the body. Do you know whose vision you're building? Attached were the original designs, all metadata intact. It was done. The next day, chaos simmered just beneath the surface. Calvin avoided my desk. HR walked by twice without stopping. Security doors started beeping more than usual. Maya told me Calvin had started locking down file access and changing passwords across departments. We had rattled the cage. Then came the twist I hadn't expected. Grace Lynn, the CEO of the client firm, responded directly to me. Her reply was brief. We need to talk. Today. I met her in a private Zoom call from a locked conference room. She was calm, unreadable. I reviewed your files, she said. Impressive work, and familiar. Familiar? I had a Calvin once, she said. 10 years ago. Same trick. He stole a pitch I spent a year building. I swore it'd never happen under my watch. She looked me dead in the eye. You'll present the demo, full board, Friday morning. I couldn't speak. I just nodded. That night, I sat on my balcony and called my mother. I hadn't told her much until now. I might be doing something dangerous, I said. She was quiet for a moment. Then softly, is it the right thing? I think so. Then it's worth everything. The next morning, I arrived to find a small package on my desk. No name, no sender. Inside, a single USB drive. I plugged it in with shaking hands. One video file, no title. It began with a screen recording. Calvin's voice, calm and deliberate, directing a staffer to scrub credit lines. Then an internal call, audio only, discussing reputation containment and narrative control. There was no doubt whose voice it was. Whoever sent this wanted me to finish what I'd started. And now I had the match to light the fuse. The room was colder than I expected. Bright, quiet. One long table stretched the length of the conference hall, lined with stern-faced executives. Screens glowed behind me, ready to display the future of their billion-dollar vision. Grace sat at the center, expression unreadable. My palms were damp. This wasn't just about a design anymore. It was about truth. I cleared my throat. Good morning. My name is Ethan Graves. I'll be presenting the Harmony District prototype. The lights dimmed slightly as I brought up the slides. My slides. Not Calvin's polished, empty version. Mine. The lines were raw, detailed, imperfect. But they were mine. I walked them through each layer, explaining the foundational logic, the sustainable integration, the architectural flow between community zones. Heads nodded. Grace's eyes stayed locked on me the entire time. Then came the Q&A. A board member asked, "There seems to be a discrepancy between the version submitted last week and the one you've shown today. Can you clarify?" That was my cue. Instead of answering directly, I clicked on the final slide. A black screen with white text. Integrity is not optional. Then I played the video. Gasps broke the silence. Calvin's voice filled the speakers, instructing edits, author deletions, reputation control. And then a second voice emerged. Cool, practiced, higher up. Is the less credit Graves gets, the easier it is to control the outcome. A name flashed across the file. Douglas Harland, Vice President, Strategy. The silence that followed was heavier than anything I'd ever felt. Grace stood up. This is unacceptable. Phones buzzed. Whispers spread. I could see some execs already texting. The chain reaction had begun. By noon, the video had leaked online. I hadn't shared it, but someone had. Probably the same person who slipped me the USB. Architect of Truth exploded across social media. Architects, interns, even teachers posted their own stories of being erased, silenced, overlooked. That night, I didn't refresh my feed. I didn't track the views or read the headlines. I just went home. My daughter was already asleep on the couch, hugging a blanket she called Mr. Lion. I scooped her up gently, carried her to bed. She stirred only once, muttering something about Lego towers and dragons. I lay beside her for a moment, watching her breathe. For the first time in years, my chest felt light. My eyes closed without resistance, and I slept, really slept. The next morning, chaos had bloomed. Calvin's face was everywhere. Corporate news, business forums, even Reddit threads. He tried to issue a statement, but it only made things worse. The company scrambled to control the damage. Clients pulled contracts. Investors demanded answers. Then Grace called. "I want you to lead an independent audit," she said. "Internal ethics, operations, everything." I hesitated. Why me? Because you're the only one who did what no one else would. Within a week, I was back in the building, but this time with full access and no Calvin. What struck me wasn't the power shift. It was the people. Janitors, interns, managers, people I hadn't spoken to in weeks, stopped me in hallways. Some nodded quietly. Some whispered thank you. Others just looked guilty. They had seen it happen, but they had looked away. Now they couldn't. I kept my head down, and did the work. We uncovered more than I expected: fake invoices, backroom deals, bonus schemes tied to silencing whistleblowers. Then something new: a folder on the new director of technology, sealed, labeled HR discretion required. Inside, complaint logs, 3 junior staffers, allegations of coercion, credit manipulation, verbal intimidation, déjà vu. Different face, same disease. I stared at the file. One line at the bottom chilled me. Under review. Suppressed by C. Stroud 6 months ago. The infection had never been just Calvin. He was a symptom, not the root. It started as a Google Doc, just a list of names. Designers, engineers, coders, interns, people who had been erased like I was. Some of them had screenshots, some only had memories. All of them had silence. I called it silent architects. Maya helped me set up the infrastructure. Anonymous reporting forms, a volunteer legal team, a digital archive to store evidence. Within days, we were flooded. Hundreds of messages. The pattern was everywhere. Powerful people rewriting history by deleting names. I thought I was alone. I wasn't even close. Then came the news. Calvin had been served a class action lawsuit, not just from me, but from 11 others. I read through their claims. One had her entire thesis stolen and used for a corporate pitch. Another had built an algorithm for city traffic modeling, only to see it launched under someone else's name. It was as if Calvin had made a career out of ghosting brilliance. At first, I felt a rush of vindication, but it didn't last. That night, I met Maya at the old parking lot again. We sat on the hood of her car, eating vending machine chips. "Do you feel better?" she asked. "Not really." She nodded. "Yeah, me neither." I looked at her, the city lights flickering in her eyes. I keep thinking, maybe if I'd spoken up sooner, Alec wouldn't. She stopped me. "He made his own choices. You made yours. The important thing is, you didn't repeat them." There was a pause. The air felt thinner than usual. "I don't know if I'll ever forgive Calvin," I said. "But I don't want to become like him either." She turned to me. "Then don't." I exhaled slowly. Forgiveness doesn't erase the cut. But maybe it keeps me from becoming the blade. The next morning, IT handed me full admin access to the internal archives. As part of the audit, I could delete, edit, or flag any profile, including Calvin's. His file was open on my screen. All the disciplinary notes, the false credits, the manipulations. One button, one click. And he'd be scrubbed from the system, just like he did to us. I hovered over the keyboard and closed the window. Erasing him would make me feel powerful, but it wouldn't make me right. That weekend, I flew to Copenhagen for the Global Ethics in Design Conference. They'd asked me to speak on creative ownership and corporate manipulation. I had 20 minutes and a room full of skeptics. When I walked on stage, I didn't bring slides, just a single statement. "I'm not here to tell you how to protect your work," I began. "I'm here to remind you that if you don't speak up, someone else will write your legacy for you." I told them about Calvin, about Alec, about Maya, about the hundreds who never got credit because someone in a nicer suit decided their silence was part of the job. I ended with a call to action. We don't need louder voices. We need quieter ones to stop whispering. After the applause, a man approached me. Late 60s, neatly dressed. "I used to sit on the board of your firm," he said. I tensed. He handed me a folded piece of paper. I've been following your work. Justice by design is necessary. I opened the paper. A donation slip. 6 figures. No name? I asked. He shook his head. Let the cause speak louder than the donor. Back home, I sat with my daughter at the kitchen table. She pulled out an old binder, one filled with sketches I'd long forgotten. Early drafts, napkin doodles, ideas too big for their time. Are these yours? She asked. They were, I said. Now, some of them became buildings. She stared wide-eyed. You made real stuff? Yeah, I smiled. Once upon a time. Later that night, I checked the Silent Architect's inbox. Among the flood of new messages, one stood out. Subject, they took my name too. The message was short. I'm a senior architecture student. Just found out my professor submitted my final project to a competition. Under his name, no one believes me. I saw your video. Can you help? I closed my eyes. It was starting again. The irony wasn't lost on me. The same company that once erased my name now printed it on banners, brochures, keynote slides. They had changed their logo, changed their mission statement, and, most notably, changed their culture. The new CEO reached out last month, a formal invitation. They wanted me to speak at the rededication of the Harmony District headquarters, the very building I had designed, the one Calvin took credit for. This time, it would bear a plaque with my name. More than that, they adopted a new company slogan, Design is Truth. Those 3 words had been scribbled on a sticky note I'd taped to my monitor 2 years ago. I never thought anyone saw it. Apparently, someone had. I showed up with my mother and my daughter in tow. It felt surreal. They'd installed a glass wall with my blueprint sketches etched into it. I saw the lines I once drew at midnight, bleary-eyed, tired but relentless. We posed for a photo beneath the atrium. Me in the middle, my daughter holding my hand, my mother standing tall on the other side. My mom looked at me and whispered, "You did it, son." I didn't say anything. I just smiled and blinked away the heat in my eyes. After the ceremony, a staffer handed me an envelope. No sender, no logo. Inside was a handwritten letter. I recognized the handwriting instantly. Calvin, Ethan, you were always better. I knew it then. I know it now. I couldn't stand in your light, so I tried to block it. And I failed. Not just at stealing from you, but at understanding what real legacy looks like. They gave me 10 years. I deserve it. You don't owe me anything. But I had to say I'm sorry. See. I read it once, then again. Then I folded it and slid it back into the envelope. I didn't respond. Because maybe real forgiveness doesn't need an answer. Maybe silence is the final word. There's a strange clarity that comes when you've lost everything and rebuilt it from nothing. My career had been stolen, my name buried, my work erased, and still, here I was, not just recovered, but responsible for changing the game. I wasn't interested in being famous. I was interested in never letting it happen again. So I started something bigger. It began with a single room, rented out in a shared workspace, a whiteboard, a few chairs, some old architecture textbooks. I called it the Foundry, a school for architecture ethics and design philosophy. But with one rule carved in stone, every project must include the full names of all contributors. No anonymous credits. No supervised by garbage. If you drew one brick, your name was going on it. The Foundry grew faster than I expected. Students flocked to the model, some from traditional universities, others from industries that had chewed them up and spat them out. They wanted more than technique. They wanted values, boundaries, meaning. One day, while painting the main hall, a student stopped beside me. "Is that the original wall?" she asked, pointing to an empty brick panel framed in the corner. I nodded. "What's going on it?" I smiled. "The very first piece I ever designed, but never got credit for." She tilted her head. "Are you finally putting your name on it?" "No," I said. "I'm letting the world do it for me." A week later, the staff installed a plaque. "First built, never claimed. Designed by Ethan Graves. Legacy lives in what survives erasure." I didn't cry, but I sat there for a long time, reading it over and over. That night, back home, I cleaned out an old drawer, found a yellowing piece of paper with crayon scribbles. My daughter's handwriting, clumsy but determined. "Daddy is the architect of my dreams." She was asleep on the couch again, curled up with Mr. Lyon, breathing softly. I sat beside her, the paper in my lap. I didn't need applause, or titles, or headlines, because I had this, and it echoed louder than any name ever could. I turned off the lamp, tucked the paper in my pocket, and let the room go dark.